Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented, with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of the Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your Jet Scout knowledge and skills to use, to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from the Far Shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
May. An fast schon vi cryptic noi farfar ni wenza you need. Dear Yarneda, the wild sei boten in noi. Gal nexishas, nay sei farfar reversa. Need some to Jones. Need. Eis call. A yed ilsi noi calvan munomish. Ansa se vi glasta noi ores and boltes. If mir schon met koi paru umpana. Ja, chat ik out il mee. Rosie noise ak kwalen nimke I sjutelen. Waar van noi worden wees. Chanten van nee. Chanten hoef, chanten geloof. Wann zij heks je vouwen mee. I shall rest it out. De honie ook die ik min hemspa. Pajek we shimmer zien. Roos.
Blue lit face. Maybe because it's 2 in the morning.
Because it's a sick face.
Anyway, yeah, but I did a lot of the technical side work on the project. Anyway, so yeah, why don't you go, Andy?
Sure. I'm Andy Worman, aka Scientific. I've been on this project since the semi-early days. accidentally, but then intentionally a few years after they started, Craig and Patrick started creating music and doing all the sound, anything audio that the game needed. And throughout the years, I kind of switched over to just doing music as other people who are better at sound than me came on to take that over. I will now hand it over to Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard Flanagan, second from the left there. Lots of hair. I, like Dan, joined this project just in the past year to help out with some stuff on Given Time. Feel really lucky to be contributing, even though my role is pretty small, because this is a really, really, really cool project and a really cool game with a lot of really ambitious systems and some really unconventional and cool bits of design and narrative going on. So I'm really psyched to be part of this release. So great work, everyone. This is a serious accomplishment. You know, this has been many, many years in the making, and it really shows.
Yeah, we should note, like, this is a big moment for all of us here. Patrick, you just pushed the lever to make Given Time live across the world on various platforms just earlier this morning, and then we've had a busy morning of, you know, sending out newsletters and tweets and whatnot else, and yeah, now here we are all together, a little frazzled, a little exhausted, a little excited.
We've done a week's worth of work this week, and it's only Tuesday.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it's cool. It's exciting.
Here we are. So I'm trying to play and think and talk at the same time. Don't know how well it's actually working.
You're definitely playing, and this is a pretty exciting section of the game, both in Given Time and the Far Shore. This is one of my favorite sections, I must say.
Yeah, I feel like this section, it's got the right sort of like density of narrative. You know, it's not too obtrusive in this section, and then you sort of get a chance to just settle into the actual gameplay and the music. And yeah, this section here, we're hearing about a search and rescue mission that we're going to have to go on to go rescue some of our fellow scouts. And yeah, it's a cool section.
Speaking of kind of touching on the musical aspect, since we have Andy here, Andy, do you want to kind of talk us through a little bit of kind of what sort of musical inspirations, and maybe Craig can kind of pitch in there too, because I know you guys have been kind of shaping the identity of this forever, but it has a very strong identity, and definitely the music and sound is a big piece of that. So yeah, Andy, what kind of was that? What was that sort of initial brief, or what was that process, if there was one, to kind of develop the sound and music of this game?
Yeah, I can go for it, but yeah, Craig, feel free to prompt as I forget things, because it's been a long period of time.
Sure.
Yeah, I believe I believe this all started because I had a few little tiny bits in the previous Super Brothers game, Sword and Sorcery EP. Just a couple little things. Obviously, Jim Guthrie did the amazing and vast soundtrack for that. But somewhere in there, Patrick and Craig started working on prototypes for what would become JETT. I think at a game jam, a Toronto game jam, right? But they had used some of my music off an old record that I'd put out, or the record label had put out, I think in the early 2000s. So very, very, to me, ancient music was just used to set tone for this initial demo, and then I actually heard through third person, that hey, I love that new game, that new Super Brothers great game music. That's how I found out that I'm working on a new Super Brothers game. I say jokingly, but it was very humbling to find out that way. So yeah, then as this game ramped up, I was brought on board to kind of think about what it should be like sonically. We had this one touchstone piece of music I had done as a good starting. Once I got familiar with it, it was pretty. There's a metaphor that became pretty solid to me, which was this: if we're human or humanity are the explorers heading out into space, they're heading out into the unknown, this foreign, unknown planet full of unknown things. And so I started working with this metaphor of or duality of two almost types of music, kind of opposed against each other, one representing the humanity and one representing the Tor and the alien planet. So humans are represented by more classically, or typically I'd say, heroic music, orchestral, lots of strings, kind of grandiose and sweeping, to match kind of this adventure into the unknown. But then up against that was the more organic, but also synthetic and strange and otherworldly sounds of this planet. And so that was the initial metaphor, and for the most part, it stuck through the entire thing and still exists. It's one or the other every once in a while, but frequently it's the two intermingling as these two worlds kind of collide and get to know one another.
That's
I was
awesome.
going to say that scene
Greg?
on foot just there, where we're talking to Caro and there's a crashed jet and cool landscapes in behind there. That was a scene that goes way back. Something that seemed like, hey, if we can deliver on a story and gameplay that includes a scene that looks like that and feels like that we'd be like well on our way to figuring out the design of JETT. And yeah, it's just a really vivid memory, that specific location, and then we had this scenario up and running in, who knows, 2016. It was pretty coherent and playable.
Yeah, that's a fun thing worth a mention, is how much of the music was written not prior to narrative being in place. Well, yeah, narrative ideas floating around, but not super solidly in place. So a lot of the scoring was done to kind of more moods and vibes, and almost scoring the islands as opposed to specific character interactions or what's happening at any one time, plot-wise.
So
So that was fun.
I will say,
Yeah.
as a sort of latecomer to the project, but I think, a veteran of the games industry, here's a little inside baseball for people watching. It's actually very atypical. Most of the time, the sound and the music departments get kind of the brief way at the end when the product is kind of done. And I think that the integration of the music and the sound really speaks volumes to this game, where the music does feel part of the identity. Actually, not feels, it absolutely is. Like when you play this game, you're awash in this sort of duality you've described. And I think it's really special. And I think maybe people don't realize that sort of approach is atypical. Having music and sound there from early on is special.
Yeah, and this is, I've joked many times, this is the first game I ever worked on. I've been in the games industry for over 10 years now. So I didn't know this was atypical. It wasn't until later where other people were like, here's our game, give us 45 minutes of music in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that isn't as good.
Yeah.
But I've been really, so for the most part, to work on games where they really think of music integration technically and kind of creatively early on, and so really get to kind of find my way through a score before being thrown discrete scenes to make music for and then be done, which is, it's a lot more work, but it's a lot more fun, and I think in the end you get better games out of it.
I think when I think of that approach, at least for Super Brothers, the music often has come first, in terms of motivating the creation of something, like the old kind of, pixel music videos for the Jim Guthrie songs. Those songs, pre-existed any sort of visual material that I brought to bear on it, and it was almost as if I was trying to explain how much I loved the song by making a little kind of movie to package it up. And then for Sorcery, it was, a lot of pre-existing stuff, and, it was important that we kind of get an interesting aesthetic and vibe in place, and, get that in place earlier in the process, because that was going to be kind of one of the key things that we were motivated about. And so that approach just carried forward into JETT. And yeah, Andy, like you were saying, through the Sorcery Moon Grotto interconnection, I had come across, and then of course Patrick had come across your prior musical arrangements, and they just had such an incredible sweep to them, and an incredible space and vision, and the tone of them. I mean, there's a range of tones that you're able to do, and a range of sort of instrumentations and orchestrations, but it seemed like, boy, there's a whole universe here, and it seemed like the kind of universe that we would want to be playing this kind of game in. And so yeah, it was a bunch of years while we had you in the loop with just Patrick and I kind of figuring out what this project wanted to be. It does seem strange, the number of years that passed during that time, but there was a calculation to it, which was that if we kept it real small, just Patrick and I, then the burn rate is not very high, the sort of complexity is not very high, and we can enjoy that time figuring things out together. And that's what a bunch of those years were. If we had brought on more people, we could have gone faster or found where we wanted to go a little bit more directly. But then, we would have had more burn rate. So that didn't seem like the right option.
I have a hunch you guys took the right journey. I think sometimes it takes a while to find a thing. And yes, I know this game took you guys a long time to make, but I think that journey helped you kind of really percolate in these systems. Speaking of systems, this section of gameplay here is one of the more exciting things I remember from the initial campaign that Dan's playing through now. It does a good job of being this sort of little playground of a couple different entities, a couple different systems that contribute to a kind of stressful and kind of a section of the game with a lot of spectacle. So the game like this with this scope of interconnected systems is pretty atypical for initially a 2-3 person team. But what were some of those big sort of, I guess, challenges in building something this systemic, this integrated with these sort of connected ecosystems? And I'm going to ping you, Patrick, because this seems like a big, ambitious thing for a team this size.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and I think it was a long project, and so much we learned over the years. I think, especially in terms of systems, there's a lot of kind of rabbit trails to go down, but a few of the key ones that learnings that I had along the way is one was trying to make things more discrete, if that makes sense. The early versions, I don't know, we had everything was very analog. So the ship makes a sound, the jet makes a sound when you take off or something, and that has a radius, and there's a fall off, and so and if at that distance the volume is above some amount, then it would startle something. So it was very kind of trying to be very make it a simulation, try to make kind of realistic choices, but as a player you never knew why anything that happened because it's it was all very kind of analog and messy. So yeah, we just learned slowly to push things more towards just very kind of discrete. This is either a loud sound or a quiet sound, and it has a single kind of radius of effect, and try to do as much as possible to kind of make that radius visible in some way.
That's really interesting. because like from the player's perspective, from my perspective, playing the game, these systems feel a lot more that the analogness kind of exists there. So it's interesting that you guys had to curate down, not down, just curate towards these more discrete and legible kind of interactions. That's cool.
That's reminding me, Patrick. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It's just when, at a certain point we, needed to bring in some design experience and talked to a few different designers and eventually brought Randy Smith on part-time, who's a perfect fit for this kind of project. And I remember as he was like climbing aboard, he was realizing how deep our systems were, and they were deeper than they needed to be to serve a lot of the kind of more like linear narrative elements from the Far Shore campaign. So it was almost like it was overbuilt in that respect, but really because our kind of like our eyes were on the kind of free roaming ecosystem puzzling that that's now in given time, it kind of was necessary to have that level of kind of depth and complexity and interrelation. But as Patrick said, we did have to chop certain things down to make them more legible or less unwieldy from a design perspective.
Yeah.
I have a good metaphor from the sound aspect of this, which is extra ironic because of the game's ultimate title of JETT. Was that one of the earliest concepts I was working with sonically for the JETT itself was, thinking a lot about what the propulsion system is. And so we thought about like, our future, what's a cool technology. And so I was, thinking about this idea of it being some sort of anti-gravity thing that isn't a jet. What's the opposite of a jet that can move things around? And so we worked with a lot of concepts around that, like, well, if this thing is, it doesn't make much sound itself, but it's pushing a ton of energy to move around. What does it sound like in the environment that's in? What does an ocean do if you hit the whatever these thrusters are and it pushes water away? So we actually tried a fair amount to make the sonic signature for this thing almost environmentally reactive as possible. So it wasn't making sound, it was making the things around it make sound. So we thought about, actually a good metaphor for the folks here is like snowboarding, when you carve and you get that nice scrape through snow and ice. So that sort of thing. Well, what happens if you essentially break to the environment? But we just found, after a lot of working, we just weren't, that sonic concept just wasn't pushing the fun of flight. It was just too, I guess, heady and non-tactile, and so we reverted back to more jet-like sounds that just work better for getting across that sense of like speed and momentum.
But the overall creative goal there, I think there's some consistency where I think we decided early on that like whatever the jet sounded like, we didn't want it to take over the sound space. So we always wanted it to be whatever its flavor was, to be as present as it needed to be to kind of tell you what's going on and give you some feedback, but then to kind of give a lot of space for the the ambient sound and the music and just the sounds of your jet moving through the world, which does that's the difference between like a snowboarding game and a racing game, is by default the racing game has the engine sound mixed pretty high. In a snowboarding game, it's just the sound of your board interacting with the snow, and it's mixed quite low, and JETT's much more on that side of things, I would say.
Yeah, and I think we still have a pretty good nuance in the sound space, depending on the surface you're on and like the spatialization of that as well, which has always felt really good. So
yeah, not to get too much into like the details, but so we have the jet sound, like engine-y, propulsion-y sound, but there is still an underlying layer that's more technological and kind of a pleasing hum that goes up and down with the speed you're at. But yeah, one of the earlier things also was the idea that when you essentially change speeds from low to high gear, that this thing just gives off a massive pulse of energy like a sonic boom, and what would that do? And I looked back at some of the original mixes, and it was just massively loud, and that was very cool for what it was. And it would boom out across the landscape, and all the birds and wildlife would all go quiet because of this huge obtrusive boom. It was a really cool concept, but yeah, just there's so much going on here. We had to really kind of dial that back and make it work with all the other sounds that you can hear.
Well, I'm really glad you guys kept that though. That sound, like when you're it makes the jet feel like a real machine, as opposed to just this device you're kind of traveling around. Like when you kick it into gear, and it does send, admittedly, a much subtler, I guess, version than you guys had then. Like I feel that momentum. I feel like I'm pushed back in the cockpit. Because, the jets are firing up again. Sorry, I interrupted. Patrick, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. That's another casualty of gameplay. It's probably also creatively audio-wise, but it's another thing where, we're pretty enamored with the concepts of, inadvertently rustling stuff up, and having to be pretty deliberate about how you're acting in the world. But it's another case where people, even it's a big sound and you kind of see some stuff react, it takes a long time for players to kind of connect the dots. So me turning scramjets on is an active choice and not just switching starting to sprint versus walk or something. So yeah, a lot of people playtesters were just kind of getting into trouble without realizing why they were getting into trouble. So it helped to make that a little bit less of a big deal.
Well, I think it ended up somewhere really cool. I think you guys are being a little self-critical. It's we had to scale back. No, you pushed out those edges. You found what worked, and then you dialed it into where it was in its sweet spot. That's how it works, guys.
Can you tell me I'm good at something?
I mean,
you're great. You're great at flying this jet, Dan. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, in this section here, so earlier we were sort of following the narrative, and we kind of finished that search and rescue mission, and then some new scenario presented itself. Earlier when the jet kind of rolled up at that building, ground control, we discovered, there's something for us to resolve. But then it just drops you into, a free roaming section, basically, and so that's what Dan's going to get up to for the next little bit, probably, is just... zipping around, which is fun to do. Yeah.
Bolster them, go bloom.
Get bolstering.
Yeah, we really got to fly around a lot in the early days.
And in the late days as well.
Was yes. But just learning what's fun and what's not was a great experience. And again, as I mentioned, I was new to game dev. I came from linear media, so I was much more used to things kind of being done when they got to me. And, like a film. Pretty much a rough cut, maybe, is the earliest I'd get. And you're kind of squeezing things in. And so one of my epiphany moments working on this game was this breaks a lot. Oh, well, I was playing it yesterday and I can't now? I don't understand. How did you guys screw up?
Why did you choose to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, and oh, okay, this is how things get better. I get it now. And then, in the end, learning to really enjoy that.
Yeah, creating video games of any scale and size is not easy. And then creating video games with a great deal of complexity and different design elements and systems that interrelate, it can be a lot. And then things can be fragile, like JETT is just so sprawling that it was a bit of a beast to work with at times. but we got through it.
Here we are, launch day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looking
Congrats,
good up
guys.
here.
Yeah.
Nice weather.
Makes me feel at home.
Do we get any questions in, or is there anything that we should hit on? From the FAQ or whatever.
I can take a look at the FAQ. We don't have any live questions just yet, but I would encourage folks to ask anything if they are curious. There's a little bit of a Steam
do
delay.
that on the page. I haven't even checked. So there's like a little dialogue somewhere.
Yeah, on the page there's a hide chat or show chat, and then you can see that. You'll see that my posts are there, as are Dustin's.
Cool.
Dustin Harbin. I know
Yeah.
that guy.
Talking about a stash.
Andy, can I ask about the instrumentation on the soundtrack?
Yeah. Just it widely or narrowly specifics?
I was hoping that I would open my mouth and like something great would come out. Mainly,
I
it didn't.
have like
Yeah.
I have a tag-along question from Dan's. Like, I am lucky enough to have worked with Andy on another snowboarding game. We're not going to get into that chat today. But Andy, I'm a big fan of your work, and when I associated in my mind, for the most part, you being kind of a synth-centric person. So lots of synthesizers, lots of like electronic music production. So when I first heard this soundtrack and how orchestral it is, I was like, whoa, was that new for you? Was that old for you? I know you worked in a kind of different, more linear industry. Like, what was that like, building something so orchestral in comparison to the synthy stuff? I know you for
Word for word, what I was going to say.
Weird how that works. It's always something I've been interested in, and the first, as mentioned, the first kind of demo of the game used something of mine from way back when that is a bunch of strings, but Craig didn't know that it was samples. So hired under false pretenses.
Now you tell him.
I don't know that I thought that they were real instruments, but I maybe didn't think
Real,
about it
yeah.
too much.
Yeah, and it is, and it's more, and that's perfect example of what I think about these things. It's not scholarly. It's not, kind of brainiac through like how does music work. I just like sound, and so one thing I've always tried to do my best is just kind of work with sounds I like, and a lot of times by nature, like synths and orchestral stuff is harder to get to work together, so they've had kind of a division, and in turn, when I've done either, it's never been much crossover. So this was the first time I was able to do so much orchestral work within the confines of kind of one big concept, but also to make it mesh with synth things that I'm more used to doing. So that was a ton of fun. And again, we had enough time where I didn't just have to bust out X minutes of music in X amount of time, and was able to experiment with what works and what doesn't. Like, I think one of the highlights for the Given Time soundtrack for me is a piece of music, and this will totally give it away when you go back and listen to it, that the synth part came first. I was like, man, this is really cool synth arpeggio thing. What would this be like if an orchestra tried to play it? And so that's is that Aloft, I believe, is the final title.
Yep.
So you listen to that, it is flutes and clarinets and oboes all flitting around doing a pretty intricate, I guess for lack of a better term, a melody, but it's just me replaying the synth part with these other instruments, just going, what would this be like? And I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Let's go with that. So yeah, it's been really fun mixing the two, and I think pretty successful. Like, I'm super happy with it. And the only thing that was, in my opinion, unsuccessful, we got to replace. which was anything remotely resembling singing.
Oh yeah.
We got to work with Priscilla Snow for writing and language creation and singing, and then worked with a bunch of vocalists to accomplish that.
Well, don't forget the alternate ending with the drill and bass, kind of like the whole big crescendo there. No, I'm kidding. There is no alternate ending with drill and bass. I shouldn't say these things in the Super Brothers game.
Konami code.
Yeah, me and my Cookie Monster.
Just thinking back on some of this stuff, I think when we got going, we had Andy's old song sort of that we had dropped into that prototype and thought, hey, this is a nice match. I don't know that we, before that moment, were all fired up to sort of generate an orchestral soundtrack, but as the sort of like story concepts started moving along and the aesthetics started moving along, there was just this notion or this opportunity to make, the great science fiction game that has that sweep and, that makes you think of whatever it is, Alien 2001. And so how do you get there and how do you make it fresh was a question. And I remember back in those old days, Andy, we listened to the theme from Prometheus, the Mark Streitenfeld soundtrack, and that was kind of getting at the mood that seemed like it would be a good fit. We were also listening to the Thin Red Line soundtrack, who I still don't understand exactly who composed that. I know Hans Zimmer's name is on it, but there's such incredible pieces in there that have such a broad canvas to them and such a sort of momentum to them. And then that same Thin Red Line, the last song has the Tahitian sacred harp singing in it, which and the idea of having the human voice kind of somewhere nested inside of this kind of broad orchestral soundtrack seemed really appealing, to have a beating heart in this in this big story. But yeah, as you were saying, Andy, it's you could sort of do a lot of different things with the tools that you had, and we tried a few different things in terms of synth choral elements, but there was definitely a ceiling as to how far we could get. And that's where in the olden days we would not have had budget to just go out and solve that problem, and that was where when we were able to firm things up with PlayStation and Epic, one of the sort of top line items was, hey, can we get some human voices in this mix and into this stew? And as you were saying, that's where we ended up crossing paths with Priscilla Snow, Ghoul Noise, and a whole lot of things came out from that through the Jet Squad era. And I should note, I think Priscilla will actually be hopping on stream in hour 2 in 10 minutes or so. So we can talk more about voice stuff then.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the things that the score does well is reflect some of the mythology on the human side of this. So the choir is one big element of that, but also within the game there's kind of diegetic music, and that was a ton of fun to do, which was background for the mythology and history of these people. And so that is a direct tie to orchestral music that it's influenced by, and folks who find those during playing the game or find them on the soundtrack, well, it's kind of fun. They're kind of more kitschy, I would say, and more obviously overtly an aesthetic from the past, which was really, really fun to do. So yeah, finding those is great fun, and weirdly, they're some of my favorite stuff in the game, because I think, I don't know, it's funny that I made some almost pseudo Russian patriotic music from the late 1800s.
I love that material. It's great. Yeah, and some of that material, tonally, Sorcery obviously had jokes, and Jet from the start, maybe as a reaction to Sorcery, or also it just seemed aesthetically the right fit. There was an idea of keeping the tone a lot more level and even stoic, and that's carried through in the way that the characters speak to each other. They've all kind of got their heart on their sleeve. But in some of that yes, Soviet style or like Russian imperial music that found its way in, you can hear that under the surface, on some level, Jet's not taking itself totally seriously. There's that one song that I think we ended up calling the Signal Bureau on the album, but internally Sovietsky's, that is just a bop. That thing is so much fun.
And it's basically like hyper patriotic, militaristic oompa music.
Everyone's favorite.
Just corny as hell. But I love it.
Yeah, and it kind of helps fill in, there's a lot of layers to the gameplay of Jet, but then in terms of the fiction, we always wanted there to be a history to this culture that you could sort of believe exists. And so there are windows that you see into like the Cradle world in the prologue, or into just like where this culture is coming from. They obviously revere this author, Sosi, and he's got a bit of a like Tolstoy, Imperial Russia vibe, and you can sort of believe that your music fits in with his world, and it kind of explains where all this is coming from. So we just took a nap in a shelter, and now it's the next morning.
Yep.
And then in the Far Shore campaign at this stage, we're sort of tasked with going and helping the folks at ground control out with their problem with the throng, which is like that kind of cloud of swarming insects that we saw earlier in the stream. But this is also the part in the Far Shore campaign where you can finally just take it easy, because up until this point in the Far Shore campaign, there's just a lot of different things going on. There's a certain amount of urgency and a density of narrative. But yeah, so this is just you joyriding around.
I'm going to give them a chance to finish their breakfast before I go and bother them. Because that was one of the systems, I believe, that was implemented.
The interrupting of breakfasts. Yeah, it took a couple of years to get that feature in, and it didn't make the cut actually, but it was important to the vision at the time that we could interrupt their breakfast.
All meals, snacks.
So Craig, I might ask this question more than once because it might benefit people who are sort of tuned into the stream at different times. But sorry, you were talking about how this section you're a little more let loose, a little more like you'll be able to kind of explore things on your own, and how this is actually maybe a little bit more similar in some ways to Given Time. Like one question we have in the FAQ is like, where would someone sit if they haven't played the Far Shore? Can they play Given Time? Should they play one section first? What do you kind of recommend as far as like that flow? Because we can go into this more maybe later when we talk a little bit more about Given Time, but as this is sort of similar to the vibe of Given Time, what's your kind of quick take on that?
Yeah, we thought about this a fair bit when we were putting Given Time together, and like from the first, I was definitely interested in the idea that, on boot up, you can dive into the Far Shore campaign or Given Time from the jump, with the idea that like, hey, maybe you did play the Far Shore partially or entirely on some other platform. You're not going to want to have to replay that just to access the content if you happen to be playing it on, the next platform. Anyway, so it boots up and you can hop in, and we're fine with that. But if you try to hop into Given Time, it'll sort of suggest that you take the jet for a spin in our flight training that was kind of also in the demo, which you can opt out of, but that's a great way to just kind of get the basics under you or limber up if you've played Jet before. But then you're free to hop into Given Time, and I think there's something kind of cool about, choosing to dive into the deep end. I'm not sure that it's, going to provide the like hands-off Hidetaka Miyazaki type experience, but going in and trying to work out what this world is all about and how the jet works, there's probably something to that experience. It could be pretty satisfying, but we do sort of suggest, why not go dip into the Far Shore? Why not get through that prologue if you haven't, because that definitely tees a lot of the story up and gets you the fundamentals of the jet. And then there's a section of the Far Shore that if you only play for a couple hours, it's worth, considering. There's kind of the two first episodes, I guess, of the main game. Deploy, which is about a 2-hour commitment, and it kind of reveals the rest of how the game works and who the characters are and what's this place all about. And it's got a big sort of spectacular finish to it, so that's recommendable. And then the sort of second episode's also recommendable. It's only an hour. It's called Investigate, and that's where we kind of soak you in the story, and you finally get a chance to go to Tor, which is the kind of solemn cone at the center of the mystery of this story. And once you've traversed that, you've kind of got enough of an underpinning to, I think, progress in given time and sort of know what to do and know what the JETT's tools are for and sort of have some practice. The back half of the Far Shore is also very recommendable, but I would say it's like by that point you know how JETT works, so you're kind of free to choose. So it's a bit of a long-winded answer. Take your pick is, I guess, the response, and we've tried to sort of support whatever makes sense for people.
Cool. Yeah, I would have just said play it all, but yes, I think that was well said. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There is a greater satisfaction once you've seen how the Far Shore's story winds down, and it's a sweeter situation if you arise into given time, knowing what May knows and sort of being familiar with the overall situation that she's arising into.
Indeed.
Well, I think we're not too far from the top of the hour. We're going to take a little stream break and come back refreshed.
Yep, we're going to play some trailers
some of
for a
us.
short while. And then...
I guess a couple of us might be signing off, though. So I think, Patrick, it's tomorrow,
it's very
in
tomorrow
Japan.
for Patrick, I think.
Very, very tomorrow.
And Andy, you've got some work to get back to. Night School Studios probably could use you. So
Yep,
you guys want to say your sign-offs?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll go first. Just thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and I'm so proud that Given Time is finally out. So play it today, and then sooner rather than later, the OST will be available. I believe end of the week on Bandcamp Fridays, and then sometime soon after that for downloads off of Steam and Epic and streaming from Spotify, etc.
Beautiful.
Sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
And it's a banger.
It's a good. Yeah. And Patrick?
Yeah, I'll be signing off, but I'll be keeping an eye on the community posts and stuff. So, yeah, let us know what you think, and hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I'll see the rest of you soon enough, I'm sure.
No doubt.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
We'll be back
Patrick.
in
Sandy.
10 minutes or so. So long.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented, with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of the Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your JETT Scout knowledge and skills to use to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from the far shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world, whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
May. An fast schon vi cryptic noi fafa shur ni wenza yoni. Dear yarn neda, the wild sai boten ni noi. Gal nek shishas, nei sai fafa shru versa. Nij Santo Jones. Nij. Eis kol. A jed ilsi noi kalvan muno mish. Ansa se vi glasta noi ores en boltes. Ev mir schon met koi paru ompana. Ja, zet ik uit il mee. Rosie noise kwalen nimke verwaai. I schubtelen. Waar van noi worden wees. Chanten van nee. Chanten hoef, chanten geloof. Wann zij heks je vouwen mee. I shall rest it there. De honie ook die ik min hemspel. Pajek we shimmer zien. Roos.
Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of The Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your JETT Scout knowledge and skills to use, to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from the far shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
May. An fast schon vi cryptic noi fafa schon ni wenza joni. Dier jaren neda, va wild sai boten i noi. Gal nek shishas, nei sai fafa reversa. Nij Santo Jones. Nij. Eis kol. A jed ilsi noi kalvan muno mish. Ansa se vi glasta noi ores en boltas. Ev mir schon met koi paru ompana. Ja, zet ik uit il mee. Rosie noise kwalen nimke vawai. I shubtelen. Waar van noi worden wees. Chanten van nee. Chanten hoog, chanten kloof. Van zij heks je vouwen mee. I shall rest it there. De honi ook die ik min hemspa. Pajek we shimmer zien. Rose.
Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of The Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your Jet Scout knowledge and skills to use, to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from The Far Shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
May. An fast schon vi cryptic noi fafa schon ni wenza joni. Dier jaren neda, va wild sai boten i noi. Gal nek shishas, nei sai fafa reversa. Nij Santo Jones. Nij. Eis kol. A jed ilsi noi kalvan munovish. Ansas ev I glasta noi ores en boltas. Ev mir schon met koi paru ompana. Jo, chetek out ilmei. Rosi noise kwalen nimgavawai. I shubtli. Par va noi bor mois. Chanten vam ne. Chanten ov, chanten klov. Van sei hex javauen me. I shall rest it there. The honey of the min himsma. Payek va shimmer seed. Rose.
Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented, with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of the Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your Jet Scout knowledge and skills to use, to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from the Far Shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world, whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
Was finishing, so this Given Time stuff, I've like tasted it and had like a little tiny hand in it, but a lot of it is new for me, so it's cool to see what Dan is showing us right now. It's exciting to see new content.
I also realised, embarrassingly, that I had everyone muted. That whole thing. So I've just unmuted you all. I'll take responsibility for that. Start again!
Well, do you want to just pause here, Dan, and maybe we'll... I don't know, should we just
we're
catch
just
up?
Gonna keep going.
So we've just been informed that all of our witty repartee over the last 5 minutes
You missed some gems.
was inaudible. So during that period of time, if I recall correctly, we Dan began the Given Time campaign, and so
Did a
that's
great
May
job.
waking up from torpor and did a great job into ground control, which has been in hibernation for a few years, and the player is sort of exploring ground control and then discovering that up in command, one of the scouts is in fact still awake, and it is none other than Caro, who is voiced by someone who is on the call here, Priscilla Snow, who joined the project in 2019 and is responsible for, in one way or the other, all of the voice that you hear in JETT, from singing to speaking. And okay, so I'll hand the introduction baton back over to Priscilla.
Hello. Hi. I'm Priscilla Snow. I worked on this project from 2019 up until recently, just kind of off and on as things happened. And yeah, it was the height of the early pandemic when I joined, and it was a very interesting experience figuring out how to do certain things while we were in that environment, doing like remote recording sessions and figuring out how to control people's computers and stuff. There's a lot of wild stuff I think we talked about with Dustin in that interview that went up recently. So yeah, it's been a really wild ride working on this project, and it's been very exciting, and I'm excited that this update is out.
Cool. And then, yeah, the other a scintillating repartee from earlier was involving Sam Bradley, who joined the project as a co-lead art director and visual development artist, sort of through the JETT Squad period of time. And I'll pass the baton over, but yeah, Sam and I, we crossed paths in part because of sorcery maestro Jim Guthrie having done the score for an incredible short animated film that Sam had made some number of years ago. I happened to be at Jim's shed quarters talking to Jim about the song that ended up becoming Out of Our Hands, the sort of big interstellar song, at the end of the prologue of JETT. And I saw that, yeah, he was scoring this incredible looking film, and I saw Sam's name and thought, geez, one day I gotta look that guy up. Anyway, over to you, Sam.
Yeah, it was, I guess, very fortuitous that you were in the shed quarters at that time when Jim was scoring my film. And the reason I was working with Jim is because I discovered his music through sorcery. So it's kind of like a big Ouroboros of art and music that happened there. Yeah, so I came on, I think, probably around the same time as Priscilla, so 2019-ish, end of 2019, I think sounds about right. And then it was kind of like a light lift at the beginning and became more of a full-time commitment after I ramped up, and it felt like a good fit, I think, in all directions. And I guess this was around the time also that the pandemic was getting into full swing, so it was nice to have a crew who was already doing the remote work thing. It was nice to have a stable group of pals to commiserate and collaborate with during a pretty crazy time. And then, yeah, as far as this new campaign stuff goes, I did have a small hand in it, but I was mostly watching from afar. Although it's cool to see where Dan is now, because I do have a lot of fond memories of doing a bunch of concept art for this space in ground control. Flamini and I worked a bunch on this, and yeah, this was like a fun project to do, so it's cool to see it after a while of having not played or visited.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sam, you were really deep in with Flaminia, taking the, legible sketches that I had put in terms of environment art and taking it to this finish line where it just looks so fancy. And yeah, it's a treat to check it out again with you here. So this is the big sort of narrative scene that kicks off the Given Time campaign, and we're hearing from Caro about what's been going on for the last 3 years and why she's awake and what's going on with the him wave over inside of Tor, and just what is there to sort of be interested in the world that we'll shortly be hopping into a weathered jet and checking things out. But I guess we can
well, we've got a way of
train rolling a little bit,
introducing our next guest. If you look on the wall, we've got a picture pinned up, a little scrap of paper over there.
Yeah.
As we lean in close.
Yeah.
Oh, There
Oh,
it
it
is.
looks beautiful.
I mean,
Beautiful.
it looks better, bigger, I guess.
I'm glad I sent it in at high res so we can really
I
see all
really
the
appreciate
detail.
those pixels.
So we're talking about the page on the wall on the left of the screen, and that's an illustration by none other than young Dustin Harbin, who's with us on the call.
We'll
I
take a
can't
look
keep
at
my
some
head centered.
bigger versions
Yeah.
imminently.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dustin.
So Dustin, you have the strange role of being somebody who was on the project for probably 10 years, because
Off and
I
on, yeah.
pitched the project to you in its sort of like conceptual form, I think in 2013 at TCAF in Toronto.
Yeah, with Clive.
Yeah, Clive Holden, the voice of the archetype from that sorcery trailer. Yeah, we went up and down what this project was trying to do and the various kinds of layers and what it was trying to bring to science fiction. And and then since then you've been in orbit around the project,
Yep.
intermittent orbit. Occasionally I would call you up and we would well, actually, no, early on we went down the rabbit hole story-wise with you, me and Patrick, figuring out, who these characters would be and why they would make the decisions that they made. But then you were sort of around to contribute various 2D illustrations over the years. Does that accurately describe your involvement?
There are no lies so far, but I'm on alert. Yeah, I think most of my visible contributions are probably when players come across 2D, kind of what I think of as very Jules Verne-looking Victorian sci-fi illustrations in the game. Those are all me. And then otherwise, yeah, I've just had a kind of like a friendly ear status, which is very pleasant. A lot more pleasant than, probably what Sam had to do, where he had a lot of deadlines and hard work. I would just be like, yeah, that sounds cool. Sounds great. All right. I'll see you in 2 years. Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted because I'm just watching the gameplay. It's hard not to watch a cool-looking video game when it's on the screen in front of you. Maybe I just...
It's true.
I'm trying to play it in a way that's very compelling as well. So it's the skill in the player, I think. It
really comes through, yeah.
I was just thinking, Priscilla, you were the one of 2 returning voice actors for Given Time.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, I mean, for the Far Shore, there's a lot of speaking parts, and so that voice cast was pretty robust. There was a lot of characters and a lot of actors to cast, and, Priscilla, we worked with Gord McGlattery at A Shell in the Pit and the folks there, and it was a whole operation. But with Given Time, there's only 2-3 speaking characters, and the main one is Caro, who you voiced, Priscilla, and then the other speaking part that needed a few extra lines was voiced by Robert Ashley from A Life Well Wasted, the podcast that he had running a decade ago that just dropped a new episode. He was also Robert Ashley was the voice of Logfella back in the day, and so it's a fun treat to have him in the mix all this time later. And he plays the Observer, which, blink and you'll miss it. But he's a character who shows up later on in Given Time. Oh, and then here we are outside where there's a weathered jet that apparently nobody's using. And so off we go. This is the big moment
keys.
to go aloft.
Let's hop in, make sure it's working.
Oh, actually, no, there's this little section here where, for if people are just diving right into Given Time without having played the Far Shore, they may want to rifle through the old Scout OS menu system and just figure out how the jet and this whole universe works. It's all at your fingertips, but there might be some homework to do just to kind of get comfortable.
I'm trying to get going. It's not letting me.
Yeah,
I'm being a little impish, I think.
Caro, she just really wants you
Be
to
safe.
have checked OS. Just check a couple of things.
I remember how to fly now. There we go. It's because our faces were obscuring the thing I was looking for.
Hey, I have a question for you. I remember when I first came on board, you pitched me the story, and you and Patrick sent over a demo so I could get a sense of what the gameplay was. But at the time, I don't even think it went right to the end of the main campaign, and so I played through that, and then I think it was after I played through that, you guys were like, and then also post credits, there's going to be this other thing, and here we are now. It is like what Given Time has turned into. So I'm just wondering how you feel about like the idea or the inception of that way back when, what it was you and Patrick had planned versus like what has come together for Given Time, how you're feeling about it, whether or not it was like what you had originally imagined it would be, if it evolved significantly.
Yeah, I'll dive in on that question, but I'll just note that's us taking off in Given Time with a sort of world at our fingertips and new puzzles to go sort of discover. And
Give a
not
soundtrack
ton of-
here as well. Let's be honest.
And yeah, and this is where we drop the
yeah.
title on Andy's song Aloft, which is just, this song is so much fun. So I may have to
stop for a little
respond to
dance.
that after the cool part of this song has played itself through.
You mean this song?
But I'll say, as the song gets going here, I think for both Patrick and I mean, today is a great day. It feels so good for this material to finally be getting delivered, and it was core to what we were interested in making this whole time. And there was a period of time when we kind of conceived them to be able to be released in a staggered way. Like, obviously the story kind of sunsets in a certain way in The Far Shore, and then surprisingly re-begins in Given Time. So that was always in place. But yeah, there was a time when we were hoping to, deliver both of them. So you finish the story and the credits, and then boom, there's a sequel there waiting for you. The way it's kind of panned out, though, I think it's for the best, in the sense that like we were able to take a break after The Far Shore and limber up and refocus and put some learnings into practice. And so it kind of feels just right for Given Time to be showing up a little bit later and to have been given some time. And I think that the shape that it's in, we're proud of it. It's cool. And maybe I'll let this song do some of the talking.
It is a nice game just to look at.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying quite playing it as well.
It's pleasant though to like be able to look at all the landscape. Just like, I don't know, it's like a thing you don't always get to appreciate when you're flying. The environment that's whizzing by you. I really like it.
Yeah, there's an experience.
Finally,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, we finally got our hands on a Steam Deck recently, so I'm excited to check it out on there.
No
Wow.
kidding.
Handheld Jet.
I'm still like, I should have ordered one by now, and the good news with JETT being like feeling really good there, I guess it's pushed me over the edge. But with all the launch goings on, I haven't pulled the trigger yet. But yeah, it sounds like to hear Richard tell it, like this is a good fit for that machine.
Can confirm.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you've gone hands on too.
Yep.
Nice.
Have you played it on your Steam Deck yet, Dan?
Yes. Of
And
course.
you heard it?
Great. Thumbs up.
So saucy.
I would be streaming from it if I knew how. And Richard is prompting us in the chat to mention that those Steam Deck optimizations trickle down to the main game, built on PC, PlayStation.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so there's a sort of big win across the board.
I don't know why I did a marketing voice then.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
good. I
really
mean,
your marketing voice?
Yes. I think it's the sort
One
of
of the things
voice that can
about,
be used to sell dish soap. It's very good. He's asking me to do a Richard impression.
Now
That was my
optimized.
Richard impression. That's Richard Phosphine Flanagan, of course.
I was just gonna note that, like, with the schedule that we had for Given Time, we tried to keep it contained and get through the production and sort of have it be safe, as within a pretty like finite amount of time, which bought us a little bit of time on the back end to just repair comms and whatnot, but it also bought Patrick time to sort of iron out some remaining wrinkles. And so working with Richard Phosfiend the last little bit, Patrick got some extra elbow grease in there performance-wise, and got things running, real nice and real smooth.
Real pretty.
Real good.
Right.
Good stuff.
I should probably go and do some actual quest line.
Yeah. Let's start working on the first sort of mystery here.
Because we got to go and take a look at some of Dustin's artwork in the gallery we constructed especially for it.
We don't have to.
Don't we?
I've seen it all.
Been there, done that. Old news.
So there's something mysterious going on in the bog here. Some sort of rainbow resonance, and we're going to have to figure out what kinds of ecosystem interactions are going to sort of remove the obstacle and let us dig into whatever the mystery is.
Now I know the what picture this puzzle.
Here, yeah.
So I'm just going to do it instead of pantomiming that I don't know. So Priscilla, this voice that we're hearing now is you, but also what it is kind of your thing as well. So you invented a language, right?
Yes. Sorry, I realized I was muted.
I thought there was like a long dramatic pause.
Long pause.
Yes.
Like,
this is within
actually,
my skill set.
it's an existing language that no one knew about, but no.
Oh, you cheated.
Yeah. So it was a very interesting path to figuring out like this language and everything. I basically, Andy Scientific, the composer for the game, had reached out to me and was like, hey, I've been looking for someone with very particular choral music skill sets, and would you be interested in possibly writing a song for this game? And when I learned about the game and what it was and everything, I was like instantly just like, yes, this is very, very cool. I would love to be part of this. And so I wrote this big choral piece. The whole premise is that it's a very old traditional piece of music that the community has been singing for centuries, possibly. And it's this very like communal piece of music. And so I dug very deep into that piece. I worked on it for a long time and really wanted it to feel like something that was like very like rich with like its own history and everything. And after I came up with the kind of like music for it, I was like, okay, well, it needs lyrics now. And so I started improvising some things. I recorded myself and kind of like listened for the bits that sounded pretty natural, and started piecing those together. And then I was like, okay, I've got these fictional lyrics now, but what do they mean? And started assigning some meaning to it. And that was kind of the seed that germinated into the full language later on. So it was, it's interesting that like this language was able to kind of bubble out from this like one piece of music.
That's really cool.
So the language is called, your language is called Volega?
Volega. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Volega.
Can you explain where that name comes from?
Yeah, so the particular choral music skill set that Andy had reached out to me for is called Sacred Harp, and it's this traditional singing, like communal singing technique that kind of comes from the American tradition of like
Dan, do you want to pause here?
Religious choral music.
Just stay in that room as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Nearly showed off the debug menu.
And so in that kind of style of singing, you use the solfege system to establish the melody. It's really useful for like people who can't read music and that kind of thing. And so it makes it accessible to kind of people in the community to learn these.
Just unpack solfege just a tiny bit.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the answer to that. I think it's really fun, really fascinating.
If you've watched the musical The Sound of Music, you are familiar with solfege. Do, a deer, a female deer, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So a lot of people learn that in choir and like grade school and stuff like that. It's just another system for learning your intervals. It's really good for training your ear and that kind of thing. And so the Sacred Harp kind of having that element, I was like, okay, I kind of want to make a fictional version, in-universe version of solfege. What would those syllables be? Like, what would the equivalent of do, re, mi be? And the equivalent is vo, le, ga. And so I have a scale. I came up with like the whole scale for what the singing thing is, and I had also referenced and researched things like swara, which is a similar system in classical Indian music, which is really, really cool, and they have like an even more intense scale because they do things like quarter tones and stuff. It's so cool. Anyway, I could nerd out about these music systems forever. But yeah, so I created this whole scale. I've got the whole and half steps assigned to different syllables, and I created that scale, and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to call this thing? And I was just like, well, the first 3 notes of the scale I came up with for the song are volega, I guess volega. So that's kind of how I named it, since it was the impetus for the language. I felt like it was fitting.
That's pretty cool. So Dan, I just suggested that we hang out here because we've discovered a significant mystery, and we're about to cross a threshold.
Shall I cross it?
So there's some sort of, I think momentarily. So there's some sort of a Tor shape here, something inside of Tor, roots below Tor, and yeah. Why don't you step forward and we'll see what happens.
If you dare.
I dare. It did something. Because everything's running on my computer, I think it's going to take just a moment to catch up with the call and the stream and everything. Here we go. So
here's some of Andy's sort of Soviet-style music coming in, or no, Imperial Russian style music. Yikes!
I did want to talk to them as well. So we spent a lot of time in this particular scene, didn't we?
You and I, Dan? Yeah. Perhaps.
I mean,
yeah, this location goes way back, but it took a while to get all the sort of puzzle pieces or Tetris pieces to sit right, and yeah, a lot of shaping. There's some excellent illustrations.
They're really good, aren't they?
They
Still
are great.
Formats.
Cannot tell a lie. It's hard to explain to my friends who don't play video games. They'll be like, "What's this video game you've been working on? What are you doing? Are you animating stuff?" No, just making line drawings. And then they like animate? No, they just look cool. They're in like in a creepy room, a little museum for my drawings.
Let's take a look at this one.
I want prints of all of these.
Yeah, we should get on that at some point.
Dustin, do that.
I still have all these originals behind me in a stack. These were coming up in meetings that me and Sam were in back in 2019. Like this room really did take a long time to come together in this shape.
Yeah.
Now, isn't Isn't there a secret behind this particular portrait up there? Wasn't in the scene there was a secret tunnel at one point?
Yeah, there was. You cut it.
Look at what you could have won. It's gonna take another look.
Yeah, I'm curious how this stuff sits for people who are, experiencing it as a player. Obviously, I have a very specific perspective on all this. But like the intent was just, I don't know, to give you a lot to think about, give you a sense that this culture is coming from somewhere, that these people are credible. Also bring in some whimsy, like there's whimsy in these drawings and in some of the storytelling here.
There's a lot of like pre-game, like the text that Craig was sending me to inform backstory and drawings and all that, and really just like in a friendly way, like here's some things that you might like. Really broad and wild, like one was a biography of Genghis Khan. Another one is the dictionary behind Star Trek. Just like a lot of like deep lore ingredients that he wanted kind of in the background. But then when I made these drawings, there wasn't that much art direction. It was just kind of like that was just a thing that I would just go and make them. In fact, almost all of them were drawn 2 or 3 times because I would get them done and Craig and Sam would say, "Yep, looks great," and I'd say, "Ah." Or 2 years would go by, and my skills would have improved in that time, and I would find looking at the old ones upsetting. So I would just redraw them.
I mean, I think something that I really like that came of that process, Dustin, and it wasn't just you. There were other things that got revisited just because the project was ongoing for such a long time, right? Is that I think that while things got refined and polished and iterated on, I think there are little bits of the like the kernels of the original idea, like the heart or the soul of those first incantations that survive through to the finished game, and I think it adds like a patina, right? There's a feeling that there are layers here that I think it's kind of hard to fake that on your first try. Sometimes you do need to revisit and rethink things, and especially like in context for the narrative and the story. I mean, spoilers for the early parts of the base game, but there is like a big time jump very early on in the game, and I think that the way that you interpret this stuff, this space in particular in the game, it makes the history feel more like lore, like ancient history as opposed to something out of a history textbook. So in context, it really works for me.
There's something to just the amount of stewing of things that happened in this project, and then you end up with a pretty flavorful stew at the end with spaces and ideas that feel like a little bit more lived in rather than perfectly planned out and executed. And it's I think it suits the project nicely.
This Sosi portrait reminds me of something I forgot that I meant to do today, which was to print a Sosi mask to wear on stream. Which probably only would have been funny to maybe Craig.
I wouldn't find that funny. That's not something you mock.
You think it would be disrespectful?
Yeah. Deeply disrespectful. I think we've lost Priscilla. I'll leave Priscilla where she is.
Yes, sorry, my camera. I don't know why it has deactivated.
We've not lost Priscilla.
Yeah, just my camera. I'm trying to get it back.
Priscilla just doesn't like these drawings.
No.
Like boring.
I just told you I would like to purchase them to hang on the walls of my...
I'll just send them to you.
What the hell? Craig, why did you choose to terrify everyone like this?
Hey, listen, if I could stop this guy from manifesting in every game I've been involved with, I would.
Every time I close my eyes.
It's not like they're in the design documents, they just show up, unbidden.
I do want to kind of get close, but I also don't want to get got, so I'm going to run away.
So there's some notion that this thing is this people's I don't know, manifested fear of oblivion. Not to get too highfalutin, but that the thought that their species might not make it. This is sort of, I don't know, a visual symbol of that fear, that pretty understandable worry.
I mean, a big moose skeleton thing coming to get you, I think, it's a universal fear.
It's across cultures, a spooky ass thing.
It got a lot less scary when Dan said moose skeleton, though.
Dan has a habit of undermining himself.
Just secrets revealed. It's a race of, I don't know, David Icke style moose creatures. No.
They live on this planet. Now, we're about to meet a special friend down the end of this nasty sewer.
I just want to point out, special shout out to James Turrell. Is that the artist that I'm...
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd gone to a James Turrell exhibit at Mass MoCA, and then shortly thereafter, certain sections of this level kind of started to pick up those design elements.
The sewer under a...
Oh, right. This is the person you're referring to,
Yeah.
Dan. A familiar face and set of glasses.
This guy cracks me up so hard every single time. His weird little Nazi motorcycle helmet.
Well, that I didn't... That was not an intentional choice.
Alright, I'm gonna just...
He looks like the kind of character that would have an edgelord helmet on there.
You know, I don't know what there's going on in the costume department there, but yeah, I love this guy.
I don't know if I got paid a second time for these for the reuse of this voice.
Check's in the mail.
I'm gonna have to invoice.
Alright, let's
But yeah, to have all of the characters sort of be in a similar reality and, you know, a mix of hope and dread, and then for this sourpuss to show up and just, I don't know, cast doubt over everything.
I pushed hard
Sour.
to keep this skeptic in this sewer.
Thank you, Dan.
I don't think it was to push him out. I think that skeptic belongs in that sewer. I think he's never been happier.
Natural habitat. Awesome. I will change the... Bear with me 1 second while I just do some...
Dan's multitasking powers are truly incredible.
piloting today. It's seamless. I think you can all agree. There we go. My assistant has got that sorted for us. Here we are. We're back.
I forgot to screen grab the gloomy skeptic.
Oh, do you want me to go back and take another look at this this little... I'm going to charge at him. Hi. Very enthusiastically. Do you have your grab?
No, I can't. No, don't worry about it.
You missed your chance. We're moving
Well,
on.
the stream is backed up on my... I've got so many different things going on this computer right now. Look at that, I did get it. Due to lag. Thanks, lag.
Oh, this is cool. This is different since the last time I saw it, so it's exciting to see some new stuff in here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this was quite the room. We worked on this a fair bit, you know, Sam and I and Flaminia, laying things out, you know, back in the Jet Squad era. But then Sam, yeah, you haven't checked back in on it for a bit, so this is how it turned out.
Right, sweet.
So in the sort of lore of the you know, the story of Sosi, this prophet who told them to go into space. Earlier, when I stopped at one of the other portraits, it said late in life he neglected the sagas and kind of lost his mind. And so the way we saw it is there's a couple of like good books of lore that Sosi wrote, and then he kind of lost confidence and went a bit bananas and started sort of scrawling weird stuff. So that's what we've got up on the walls here. Sosi's weird scrawls.
Yeah, it gives us a sense that as much as like the sagas that he had written that were coherent, they ended up becoming like venerated or, you know, like enshrined in a state religion. But there was this later chapter that gets brushed under the rug by that state religion, which is the sagas that didn't actually get published, where we discover that Sosi has
Flaws.
doubts about the story that he was telling. You know, he sort of presents the hymn wave and this invitation from this superorganism, the wild, as something that would be beneficial for this people, and that there would be a sanctuary in the stars. But as he grows older, he starts to get a sense that there's more to that story, and he sort of starts to fear what might be underneath that invitation, and that's sort of some of the concept terrain that Given Time is going to explore from here.
Does anyone want a real saucy bit of trivia about these images?
Please.
The paper texture that this is digitally painted on is the packing paper that my webcam came in.
The
Very
deepest
nice.
lore.
What a sell.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
So that counts as
This is also-
upcycling?
That counts as upcycling. Yeah.
This is also the room where we kind of get a sense as to, like, why was May chosen for this mission? She's maybe not the world's greatest jet scout, and we start to learn about Zhao, who's the space program overseer, and her kind of view on both the Far Shore campaign and, you know, the sort of revelations that we're getting a sense of about Sosi and about the true nature of the wild. Nice.
This room went through a bunch of variations as well, I think, before calling back to the first thing you see in Jet.
You got the water heater in the corner.
Yeah, you gotta have hot water.
This one did get reshaped a little bit. The other locations, you know, the details had to get filled in, but the idea here was, let's bring through a bunch of different themes that feel worth touching on at this point, about the world that we've left behind, about the cost of the expedition. There's those are skulls, I'll say, surrounding us right now.
Yep.
Anyway, and also to kind of create space for, you know, some good old-fashioned prog rock spectacle and that, like, kind of dream storytelling that we have tried to thread through the Jet experience, where we're, you know, dealing with the whole external, you know, world and driving around in jets, but we're also finding our way through May's kind of internal psychological world.
Min Amerchin. Svisrayak Shotrab Yaryande. Ko.
That's probably a good thing.
Oh god, this again. I remember one of the notes I
this
passed
guy,
on this
though.
was like, it needs to be unreasonably big.
That's right. Dan, you were like, it should be 2 times bigger, because that just makes sense. And mathematically, I couldn't argue.
Yeah.
Had to be done.
I think
Oh,
I
who's
think
that?
I actually said make it 2 times bigger and then double it. I think.
So yeah, we're getting pushed by the Oblivion monster into the darkness, where Jones is visible in the distance. And we have this kind of long, dark stretch to traverse.
Well, this
Kind
is
of
almost
feels
like
like
a
the
visual
three sub
callback
corporate.
to very early on in the game.
Almost.
Almost.
I'm back. Oh,
See ya.
here we go. Ah.
Oh, it's a metaphor.
Samsung.
And this motion graphic sequence here, obviously put together by Richard Flanagan. Great work, Richard.
So good.
Thank you very much. Yep, and one of Andy's oldest Jet tunes. tried to get this in various places, could never get it to stick, and then it found its right spot. With a rare, hopeful melody in the Jet universe. Yeah, so that was the big prog rock spectacle to kind of kick things off for Given Time. And then from here, we've got a lot on our minds, a lot to think about. And then we're also kind of getting into the big, broad midsection of the new campaign, which is pretty free roaming.
Mm.
And those are the 5 islands that kind of make up the Tsosi Massive Archipelago. And there's a little something that just showed up.
Interesting. Right.
Me, Anzia, Utsusis Bosva, Lashin Malta. It's slept Etel Rashtrimba, Vershed no Bashirsa, Vahimpina, Oiven, Liheden, Vahimpina, Zitorza, Kozal, Amen. Or was in.
So we're probably reaching
Jubilee.
the end of the hour. A Jubilee!
Yeah, this is a pretty good moment to start to wind down. Do we just pick it up from here at the top of hour 3, Dan, do you think? Or
I think we're
what's the
passing over to Zach, I think, for hour 3.
All right.
Aren't we? Zach Wheeler, Dev Powerhouse. When we were making this, we had quite a lot of specific vocabulary and ways of thinking about things when we were putting it together. I remember asking you at one point, what would AC/DC do?
You did ask that question, yes.
There were quite a few side quests involving the White Stripes, AC/DC, a bunch of other kind of popular culture stuff. Good fun, hey?
Well, as we wind her down, Sam and Priscilla, you guys might be signing off for the day. Sam, how is it looking? What did you think of how that went?
That's exciting. I did play in progress build of some of this Given Time stuff a while back, but even since then, it's come a ways. It's been hard for me to not bug you to send me over a new build because I won't lie, I'm itching to get in there and play. I was explaining to everyone else on this call before we went live that I recently upgraded my TV pretty substantially, and so I've been itching to have Jet in front of me on a big screen and experience it in all of its intended glory. So yeah, I think sometime soon I'm gonna dive back in. I also just I feel like maybe this was a similar experience for other people playing the game, but by the time I had finished the core game, I think I had grokked the Jet movement and the Jet gameplay, and I just wanted the opportunity to do what Dan is doing right now. So I'm stoked that there is this whole new chunk of game where it is, I guess what we've been watching now, there was a good chunk of on-foot gameplay, but the majority of this new content is what Dan's doing right now, which is flying around in the Jet, exploring the world. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that in the new content.
Hanging around, launching off stuff.
Should we do little outros? Sam, what are you up to? And then we'll go to Priscilla. You've moved on to the next gig and you're deep into it. What's that about?
Yeah, for sure. So after wrapping up Jet, I switched over to a studio called Don't Nod, and they have a Montreal studio that I'm working with, and we haven't really said a whole lot about the project yet, but we did just last week release our first screenshot teaser, which I think I'm not allowed to say anything about that screenshot other than go look at the Don't Nod social medias and you can see a screenshot that I have a hand in art directing, and yeah, so there's a new narrative game coming from us that I will be excited to talk more about in the future.
Cool. And Priscilla, you've got a bunch of different things going on.
Yeah, and I'm also in Montreal, so that's a fun thing. I have been working on 2 games primarily lately. Skin Deep, which is the next game from Blindo Games. And that is it's so much fun. Everyone on that team is really great and very funny and creative, and It's a very, very funny game. I haven't worked on many like comedy games, so it's like really funny to like be working on this now. And then the other game I've been working on, which I recently was able to announce that I'm on, is the next game from Glory Society, the folks who made Night in the Woods. So it's exciting. I've been the composer for both of these projects, and yeah, so I've been working on a lot of music and playing a lot of banjo, and lately playing a lot of accordion, which has been a new, definitely the hardest instrument I've picked up. I've been taking lessons, and it's like, whew, I have so much respect for proper accordionists.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for hopping on, and yeah, big day. We got this thing done, and now it's out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Excited. I'm getting it downloaded on my Steam Deck. I'm gonna check it out.
Let it rip.
Nice.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna dump the stream back to play some trailers. Thanks everyone for
Nice to
listening
see you
along. We'll be
guys.
back
Yeah,
in
we're
like
back.
10 minutes, I guess, or thereabouts. Something like that.
Yeah, cool. All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, this is Craig from Super Brothers AV. I served as creative director on JETT, The Far Shore, plus Given Time, co-created by Pine Scented, with a score by composer Scientific. So we've been busy since JETT, The Far Shore deployed in late 2021, and now in 2023, it's time to lift the curtain on our free upcoming 12-hour expansion, Given Time. The events of the Far Shore set the stage for this new campaign, which takes place 3 years later. Playing as May, you'll arise from torpor to find only one other scout awake, and a weathered jet waiting outside. This solo journey will take you on a player-driven adventure, with less chit-chat and a lot more freedom as you investigate mysterious new phenomena. The core gameplay of Given Time involves locating rainbow resonances and hatching brine wisps, each hiding in its own distinct location, and each representing an interesting problem to solve. By putting your Jet Scout knowledge and skills to use, to achieve your aims and survive in this rich, distinctive ecology. There's a whole world out there to soak in and explore at your own pace. I wouldn't want to give away too much of the story, but I can say that some loose ends from the Far Shore will be tied up in satisfying ways. And if you're a fan of cosmic prog rock spectacle, then I've got some great news for you. With this definitive release, JETT's vision is fully revealed. This is a generally laid-back, free-roaming, action puzzle, survival light experience set within a rich, unorthodox science fiction story world, whose distinct flavors are perhaps more easily discerned and enjoyed given time.
Hey.
Yep, so now we're alive.
We're live again. How about that?
Okay.
That's some big static noise, fellas.
Yeah, that's the game.
I think that's just the in-game audio on Zach's side. So just to kind of start to set things up, we're streaming again, but this time Zach Wheeler is at the helm. Zach, you want to wave? You're in the middle there.
Hello.
And Zach, we'll talk about it as we go along, but we call it the dev powerhouse for Given Time, and we'll get into that. But Zach, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Zach. I work on both Given Time and the Far Shore, and there are a whole bunch of different capacities, like between doing QA lead, design, working with Randy on like the Far Shore, and then also on Given Time for a while. On top of like doing some bug fixes and also a whole bunch of different DevOps stuff. It's like I've touched almost everything on this project at this point.
Yeah, you were deep in on this project in like a million different places for whatever 3 years, and yeah, with Given Time, you kind of, Randy Smith, who did an incredible job for us, getting the Far Shore out and shaping a lot of the Given Time material. He kind of stepped on to the next thing, but passed us this like full kind of report of what would make a good Given Time, and then Zach stepped into the saddle and took the reins, and then was working on design with Patrick Pine Scented and with Richard Bossfiend, who's on the call here, sort of orbiting as a design director. Speaking of which, Richard, do you want to say hi?
Hey everybody, I'm Richard Flanagan, and I've joined about a year ago to sort of act as a little bit of design backstop. These guys have been in the woods for a long time, so I tried to give a little bit of perspective where I could, but at the end of the day, they had really built something amazing. Like the team and Randy and Zach had really built this really cohesive and interconnected world with all these really cool scenarios for the player to uncover. And my role was pretty minimal, but it felt great to be a part of kind of getting this thing out the door, because it's really special and definitely speaks to me on an emotional level as well as a design level. So it was a good fit.
And we should go around the horn for intros. Dan, you're now in the passenger seat. Do you want to just remind us who you are?
Been hands-free now. I've been in the pilot seat for the last 2 hours, so my brain has got the scramblies a little bit. My name's Dan Berry. I worked on Given Time in a spare brain capacity. So I was on hand with a bunch of things in audio and environment and narrative, dialogue, trailer editing, gameplay notes, all sorts of things, really. Every day was different. I was a Swiss Army knife, I think.
Yeah, we all were sort of necessarily Swiss Army knives on this project, and especially so with Given Time, because the squad was a pretty tight squad, pretty tightly focused. And then Dustin, you're here too.
Hello. Yes, I am here.
And you're a illustrator and 2D artist.
Yeah, I'm a cartoonist. I drew a bunch of the saga drawings that we encounter in different parts of the game, and some other little things, and I've just been around the project as a hype man and idea bulletin board and friendly fellow.
Yep. And so here we are. We're in the new Given Time campaign. In kind of the previous hour, we stepped through some of the initial exposition and initial sort of mystery and the kind of like opening prog rock spectacle section, I guess you could say. And we're getting let loose on the kind of broad midsection of Given Time, which involves learning about Brine Wisp Row. And so, Zach, where are we at? Did Caro tell us to do something? Should we be checking something out?
Caro kind of like let us know, like, hey, you should look out for more rainbow signals similar to what we're looking at for the grotto. I've just been kind of running around grabbing some goat plume while we've been chatting. But yeah, so we found one here, and it's like, huh,
all right,
this is weird. We've not seen anything like this before. It's like, that's a very strange shiny orb.
Unclassifiable, you might say.
Yeah, an odd bud.
Odd bud. Yeah, I can't read the text because of the our little portraits at the top, but yeah, it's an odd bud.
Yeah.
And this was whose nickname in high school?
I was a bit of an odd bud in high school.
I think it's safe to say everyone on the chat might have been. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was a jock.
You're kicking sand in people's faces.
That's right.
Yeah, so like, Kara's giving us some hints about like, what should we do? Do we want to give this some brine? And if we look over in the science window, it's like, this responds to ocean brine. What is ocean brine? Well, I think it's probably ocean water.
Right, and there's this Given Time, Given Brine refrain that cropped up in like a key section of the far shore, but never really got resolved. But here we are, finding out that like after the course of 3 years in torpor, this brine wisp row now exists. They're ripe. They've budded, and now what's needed is to give them brine.
Oh, we got a new wisp. And what's this?
buddy.
Oh,
That's a new. That shows some sort of like progress that we just made here.
Something's going on.
Oh, it's fascinating. It looks like it's related to Tor also.
Could be.
You know, I'm kind of curious. I wonder what happens if we go to Tor. Now.
Now?
Now.
You're crazy. That's crazy too.
Remind me what does happen. I'm not sure.
You want to find out?
Kill you?
You can.
I have gone to Tor ahead of schedule, and it's you guys definitely designed for it, but it was it seemed like the game was telling me you're not ready, bud.
Yeah, they're not quite supposed to go here yet.
Oh, I mean, this is interesting, but I'm kind of curious if we were to stick to the script.
Oh yes.
Kind of.
I don't know. We're halfway to Tor now. It seems. I don't know.
This is the QA in you, Zach. You're just like, let's see if we can break it on the stream.
Oh no, we're gonna go see if we can find another rainbow signal, and it looks like I have already found another one. So we're gonna go check that out.
All right.
I know. I definitely have a penchant for doing things in games, just period, in order that people might not necessarily always expect. So
Impish in that way, I would say.
oh yes.
I think we've all got something of that in us where as soon as you're put into a box, you're just like, okay, let me just check all of the edges of this box. It's fair enough.
because we're jocks, we're alphas. That's why.
I want to kick that box.
So,
Put me in a box.
it looks like the resonance is pointing at that obelisk there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which if I played the original campaign, we might remember these as one of the puzzles there. It's like, looks like we've got a couple of those pieces still here. So we got a resonance source, I think, over here, and then we've got a partially present ion pool. That's something to note for later. And yeah, so I think we can pull one of these and give it a shot and try and activate it.
Do it.
Punt it.
We'll punt it over here.
Now, is that an advanced flying maneuver that you're pulling out there?
Using the forward dashes are like one of the main ways to move about when you're carrying something heavy. Resin in particular you can't carry with the scramjets on, so you have to figure out ways to move quickly without the scramjets.
Oh, and then this is a heavy brine wisp row, so we're not going to be able to.
We can't really pick it up, so like, how do we? It does say it moves by concuss. That.
Here we go. Move over Rocket League.
Let's get this in the ocean.
I must admit, this is a very satisfying mechanic. It was cool to see that you guys had a couple different types of brine wisps in the game, and this is obviously the second wisp you unleash, but it really opens up and starts to make some interesting gameplay possibilities. Like when you're racing against time later. I guess later, maybe next week, we'll get into that later section of the game. But yeah, it gets more intricate, and more things are happening later on.
Right, it's a little bit more involved. These are definitely, just the introductions.
There seems to be a little bit of chatter going around. Have we encountered another technical hurdle?
Yeah, this a heavy Brian Whisperer in real life.
Yeah.
So is this a moment where we can confirm that the stream is down and Zach can pause to troubleshoot on his side?
Yeah, it looks like the stream's down.
That's
So Zach, you might
very
need to...
interesting because currently it is not down on OBS.
And your internet's working.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still connected with you guys.
Stop and start the stream again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems sensible.
Yep.
I've closed my OBS so I can't. I can open it up again. And pop a trailer on. Do you want me to go live with a trailer? Is that
Whatever we
cool?
can do to patch the hole, I guess. If you can do stuff on your side to patch the hole, Dan, then may as well, I guess.
Yeah, go for it. Because actually the stream
it's
has
back
now
up
closed
now.
from the top of the page.
Oh,
There we go.
are we back
It's
up?
back.
Hey!
Yep.
Hey!
Okay.
So
Turn
we
off what I was doing.
we had a mysterious glitch there. We don't know why or how, but here we are, hanging out.
It's the 2020s. We've grown to accept these things.
It's true.
Oh, it seems like it might... Okay, yeah, we're back now. Good.
So we may have missed a few minutes where, I guess we were hatching a brine wisp.
Yeah, we hatched a different type of brine wisp, and then Kara's like, "Hey, you should probably go seek some shelter because it's starting to get a little late."
Right, and so in JETT's design, there is a day-night cycle, and
we also might need to switch builds.
oh yeah. What's going on? You know what? I was going to say, there's a day-night cycle, and in the Far Shore campaign, which is a little bit more like linear and predetermined, we ended up having to often pause time here and there and just not allow time to flow because, we had the story beat to hit, or we had to make sure that we taught you this or that. But in given time, finally, we can, relax those constraints a fair bit and just let the time of day do what it does. But the player does need to know that, when you get late at night and you start seeing that the pink light from the gloaming, that you got to start thinking about where you're going to take shelter, because if you happen to be out during the sort of peak of the gloaming, it can be a little bit unpleasant as the radiation or whatever wears your shield down and sort of adds instability to your scramjets and whatnot. So
The whole thing wants you dead, basically.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
It's a metaphor for the 2020s.
A lot of the different different entities that sort of kind of exist, whether they're passive entities and active entities, they have different behaviors, right, Craig? Like in the sort of day-night cycle, where certain things appear, certain things don't.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I mean, as you'd expect, some creatures are, more active at night, or sometimes it's more of a visibility thing. Like there are, what are they called, photofloors, which are kind of like a phosphorescent goat bloom. And those will just be a little bit more noticeable in the evening. But then, there are some creatures, I think Hectors, kind of our dactyl nightmare type characters. They sort of are active during the day and not at night. And then there's your namesake, Richard, the Phosphenes, which start to kind of roam around late at night. Those are like vertical kind of bars of light that don't seem particularly scary, but then they kind of creep up on you and start zapping you, and if you've got a couple of them to work with or to sort of to deal with, it can end up being a bit much. But those are the kinds of threats that kind of start to stack as the evening goes on. And that's fine. You just take shelter, and then boom, you wake up next morning and you've got tons of jetting that you can do. But in given time, there are some things that you can only do kind of late at night or during the gloaming, and so there are moments when you kind of run up against those constraints. How are we
Just
doing?
so the stream is aware, Zach the magician has pulled up his magician's cloth and is working some mystery behind the curtain.
Actually, speaking of those sort of environmental aspects, as players are going to dive in, and it's in the Far Shore as well, the different islands have kind of really unique aesthetic and kind of vibe. Was there any like real life or any sort of specific inspiration that drove you to those looks, those vibes for those respective places, or were you just trying to kind of achieve some level of diversity going into the different environments?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there was a lot of reference and inspiration. Wouldn't it be cool if, this location, this picture, this could be a place that we zip around in JETT? So there was plenty of that. But then you run up against, what are your tools going to let you create, or within the sort of constraints that you have as back in the day, just Patrick and I, the two of us, how are we going to pull this off? What kind of granularity can we get on the terrain, or in terms of like the vegetation that you come across? How are we going to render it? What looks good? Can we have a lot of different billboards? No, we can't. Okay, how can we get a smaller number of billboards to look good? So the look kind of developed bit by bit. In terms of, trying to get some variety in there. Yeah, the first main island that you get to is a little bit of a familiar color scheme, kind of yellow, green, lots of open space. It's kind of like a nice 101 experience. But then on the next island, you want to switch it up. And so, it's Sosi Massif, which is the sort of huge island, which you only sort of see a percentage of in the Far Shore campaign. That's one where I ended up desaturating it more so, and we tried to work on how our JETT would fit with more dense vegetation, kind of jungly sections that you can't even penetrate with the JETT, but that you can like pop up on top of the canopy. And so that was just a series of ideas that just had to take its own shape. And then Ozu, it's like, all right, let's push the color to red and bring in some kind of redwood tree type concepts, redwood trees, but proportional to the Far Shore, so they're like absurdly tall if you kind of think about it. But like to hop out of the JETT, walk around. And then spires, similarly, just like achieve a nice, distinct look that is distinct enough from everything else. And then COVID, which is a great for an island, I think we can all agree. And that was one where, you got to have your snow level. Yeah. And that was one where I was looking at, David Attenborough documentaries of ice shelves and how they fall apart, and we just tried to sort of drive in that direction and achieve something of that look. And then I guess Tor, you got to have a really unusual location. You got to have your Ganon's castle, and so that one's obviously drawing from interesting volcanic landscapes with Iceland, craters in Hawaii, or those kinds of thoughts.
Cool. Well, it really comes together, and each environment really sets itself as its own kind of space, and especially in given time, it becomes secondhand to just shoot in between a different island. You just point yourself and move from island to island. But I know playing through the Far Shore, it really felt like a discovery. It really felt like we were charting a course on a new planet where. I remember when I first arrived to Ozu, I couldn't believe the color of the flora and that was there. It was like, wow, this is fantastic. Yeah. So it works. It works for sure.
That's cool. It's reminding me how there was a moment before the 5 islands, and this was way back, like 2014. And what we had was the topography of Mount St. Helens and a couple of the valleys around there. And so Patrick and I trucked around on that landscape. We installed ground control. We kind of put a bunch of different things in a bunch of places. Some of the early prototypes were there. But you know what it was? It's like when it's just a landmass, it's too much for you to hold in RAM. It's too much for you to hold in your head. And I began to believe more and more that we needed to have discrete islands that could be more distinct, but also would have coastlines that you could get to know, and sort of like a less surface area, so that you can kind of start to hold it all in your head. And then also to have that negative space of going from island to island lets you sort of forget a bunch of things about where you just were and kind of be open to sort of loading the new island up in your RAM. But yeah, it was interesting. There's technical constraints too about not having too much surface area, but really it's more what feels best, or what gives you the feeling of size and vastness and complexity without just overwhelming your capacity. Oh, and we should note, Zach has been progressing a fair bit, has sparked a brine wisp.
He's just talking to us now.
Yeah, we got a missive from Jones, whose fate was never quite settled at the end of the Far Shore, and we're getting some mystery clues.
Some spooky interjections.
Spooky interjections, indeed. The hymn waves herald.
Speak the whisperings. It's new wild. What does that mean?
This is all artfully placed dialogue. It all means something.
Narrative contributor Dan here.
Oh yeah, I worked on narrative there. Yeah. Might feel a little territorial there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting figuring this stuff out. Just what's the right thing to say in the right way at the right time to provide just enough for you to be thinking about without providing too much.
Yeah. It's a bit like doing a Sudoku.
So Zach just put them up there, and there was a whole lot more going on. So I said that we were kind of reaching the broad midsection of Given Time campaign, a little while ago, but really this is where it gets as broad as possible.
It is where it kind of really opens up. So far, we've kind of only had one signal available at any given time, but now if we look, it's like, we've got a signal for each of the different islands, and it's like, that's interesting. We've got one here as well. And then taking a look here, it's like, that's a lot of symbols that we can kind of go investigate. So
yeah, this is it. This is the experience. Here you go. Here's a video game. Run around and figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. The brains are kind of off. So we're gonna go check this one out and see if we can figure out what it is and how to solve it. Oh, that's interesting.
Hello.
Hello, friend.
Hello, you.
Oh, it's one of those, one of our Hector friends from earlier in the campaign, but this time it looks like they've snatched up an egg.
Nicked off with one of those brine wisps.
Yeah. Let's chase it down.
Zach, I noticed that you were, bursting some floating little entities that were hanging around.
Yeah, I should not be killing them, but, they kind of, they show up and
I don't know if they die.
They kind of show up and hang out, and then they don't really,
we tied up a lot of loose ends in terms of Jett's potential in terms of its gameplay and in its various narrative threads. But those Jorgos, those little jellyfish, they still have a story to tell. There's still more juice in that design space. If you concuss them, one of those little jellyfish, I believe it's true that 3 more will appear, and so on and so forth. There's weird little quirks to those fellows.
Yeah.
Is there an upper limit on how many might turn up?
Yes, I think there is. At some point there wasn't. Patrick and I discovered that there wasn't.
And I don't know if I'm crazy. I was trying to take some screenshots for them. but they like to lurk behind you. Is that by design, or was that just happening to me?
I don't know that the behind you is part of it.
They just kind of
always
show
felt
up.
like they were behind me.
They just kind of show up and hang out wherever you are. There's certain like spots of coastline that they like to specifically show up in. I think around that. I think it's the north end of shores. It's a pretty common one.
Let's all stop swearing.
So
let's imagine that whatever technical difficulties may have come up have receded into the past, and that we're still just
I
exploring.
choose to believe that the technical difficulties never happened.
Maybe in the supercut.
I don't even know what technical means.
Maybe in these in the supercut we won't have any technical difficulties at all.
Yeah,
we'll fix it in post. That's what you can do with the stream.
I would be talking about technical difficulties, but we should say we're in given time. We're in the big, broad midsection. Dev powerhouse Zach Wheeler Tankuni is at the helm, and we're just cruising around, sparking brine wisps and talking about good times.
Yeah,
here we are.
We were able to.
So this is a brine wisp row that you were able to retrieve after racing that Swift Hector, and that's our first time kind of flexing Jett's muscle as a racing game, and there's a few more of those in store.
Yeah.
So Craig, reading through some of the Jett dev posts that you and Patrick have been putting together, was there a time when this was more of a racing game?
I think there was always a strong intent to have that in there, but it needed to be emerging organically for it to sort of suit our highfalutin immersive sim tastes. We didn't want to make a game where we're counting you in 3, 2, 1 and then giving you a trophy. So we had to kind of bake the whole cake in order to put the sort of racing game icing on top. But then we couldn't quite find a place for that to sit in the Far Shore campaign, just because there was so much else going on that seemed, significant to include. And so, finally that aspiration finds its kind of home here in the sort of midsection of Given Time. And I was going to note earlier, when we started that race section, that's when we dropped the needle on Andy Scientific's song Given Time, which, like our racing aspirations, has been in the project forever, and also I couldn't quite figure out where to slot it in, and so it ended up right where it was, and it'll kind of reoccur. And I think that languid, beautiful song really gets at what we wanted Jett to be about. Like, okay, you've traversed this heady science fiction narrative, you've learned a million things, but now here you are, you've got all that in your head, and you can kind of just soak in the experience and, zip around under strange stars and think about the narrative, or just cruise and take jumps. And so we finally achieved that vision.
Now, Zach, you did something interesting there with that little lava pod. What did you just do?
What did I just do? Well, we can go take a look at the science data if we want to take a look at what these things are, but one of the things that you can do with the vapor tank that didn't really show up as much in the Far Shore, but can be used to interact with other aspects of the world here, is you can flavor the vapor that's stored in your tank with different compounds around the world. One of which is these lava plume sources can act as kind of a speed boost when you're using your jet.
It's nitro.
It's a bit of a nitro, yeah. But it comes with a major downside of while it's active, your shields are completely down. So if you start smacking into stuff, you're going to start taking damage pretty quickly.
But for I'm sure, it's kind of a weird game to potentially speedrun, but people speedrun anything. So I actually, if you're a speedrunner, I truly believe like that's going to be your secret weapon, like just absolutely flying at the edge of your seat, as it were. I'm gonna rewind just in case, or I'm just gonna reiterate something because in case it kind of got missed on the stream. Zach has been kind of opening up the sort of middle of the game, as Craig put it, like the real midsection, and a bunch of these eggs, a bunch of these symbols have popped up on the map, and they're scattered all over the world, ultimately letting you tackle them in almost any direction. Like at this point, you can see that Zach is just aiming at an island, and the glyph for the island, he's close enough now that island is starting to show all of the potential kind of puzzles or challenges that are here. And this really makes up the meat of the Given Time experience, is these cool environmental puzzles where maybe you have to bring some systems together, whether it's attracting a certain entity into a space, or getting rid of a certain entity, or combining certain things to get things done, including that sort of race that we saw earlier. So just a quick recap in case we lost some of that for the folks on the stream. But now we're heading to probably my favorite island, Ozu.
It's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
Everyone's favorite island.
It's
Dusted? Is this your favorite island? All the cool kids have this as their favorite island.
Not a fan.
Always the contrarian.
Jocks say no to Ozu.
But so cracking down another egg, and I just really smacked into some stuff.
Some flawless piloting here. Zach.
Truly flawless. But
I didn't crash the jet when I was streaming.
Oh no! I mean, I could just crash the jet. Oh, we've got an egg up here. How are we gonna get up here? That's certainly interesting. Does look like though that we've got this chain of tusks sticking out of the ground that's look like they might have some platforms up top. So I wonder if we can jump across the top of these.
Can you do it first try?
We'll see. It's been a little bit since I've played this game, so took a bit of a break to work on some other projects, and I was like, it's nice to actually get back in the pilot seat though.
So on the
you were deep in this last summer, and then you've had a few months to forget everything, or to forget some things. But let's see how this goes. So far, so good.
So far, so good. No pressure.
Okay.
2 out of 4 complete.
3 out of 4.
It.
Did we make it?
Zach's making this look quite easy. What's interesting is when we were on the call earlier, Patrick was talking about how a lot of the game sort of got dialed in to be a little bit more discrete for balancing purposes. One aspect that stays really analog is the control, is the feel of piloting the jet, and how much nuance there is in a different type of controlling. I mean, ultimately the jet is a hover ship, right? Like it stays pretty close to the ground. But there's a lot of little subtle things you can do to control the jet at different altitudes. Like Zach made that look really easy, but it's something you kind of develop, this sort of skill set you'll develop over the game to control the jet in different scenarios. And I don't know, I think that was actually part of what made me fall in love with this game when it was just kind of a vertical slice or a skeleton, was how it felt. And I think you guys have built something rewarding, if challenging. It's definitely there's definitely a learning curve for sure, but I think that the skill ceiling is very high for the control of the jet in this game. It's really cool.
Definitely so.
Yeah, there's the skill involved in completing the challenges and surviving and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the skill involved in just getting it to look the way you want it to look as you bounce around and swing the camera around. And I love that experience of Jet, of just you sort of once you sink into the controls and you're feeling familiar with it, you can be swinging the camera and putting little bits of style and going headlong through trees, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And I've eventually triggered a manta on me. Just for fun.
So in the Far Shore campaign, Issa would have shown up at some point and been like, "Hey May, listen,
we got a bunch. You just got a mantas, yeah."
And in Given Time, hey, Issa's asleep. We can do what we like. And it's
like,
nice.
I feel like waking that manta up from its roost. Why not? Probably look for another egg. Oh, there's one right here.
Oh, we're calling them mantas,
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
creepers.
player it's reapers.
Yeah, I've spent
And
so long knee deep in the back end that sometimes I have to remember that like the code names for them are not the front end names. Sometimes.
So many concepts, and then so many entities in JETT, and they all have their like weird old gnarled internal names. Like the Hectors are called dactyls because we were doing experiments with VR in 2014, and we wanted to have some reason to refer to Dactyl Nightmare, but then the name got changed years later. But then they kind of coexist. You know, when you're a developer working on it, you're seeing old file names or music clips or whatever. So yeah, you end up with like 50 weird specific internal names, and they each have their player-facing names, and they all interrelate. And anyway, working on JETT, it was its own experience in that way.
Well, we had a great set of vocabulary for pretty much everything. Some of the promo material we're putting together were Jet Snacks, and some of the larger promo material were beefy Jet Snacks.
Yeah.
So very hungry squad experience. Everyone always missing meals, thinking about food.
So I'm going to interject and talk a little bit about the gameplay here. This is definitely an interesting egg, and your science tool, your ability to scan things and sort of read about them, becomes super essential in Given Time. I think a lot of this sort of felt like flavor context when we were playing the Far Shore, but really that information there becomes much more critical. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that motile throng tempest or swirling throng tempest, that sort of like tornado of bugs around that egg, needs to be gotten rid of. And that's great and all, but how? And it says, well, bring a brine wisp over here, and you're like, cool. Brine wisps like the JETT, they hang out with the JETT, but they never come on land. Like I've tried to lure them without, because they like to hang out. They seem nice, seem chill, but they don't want to come on the land. So this is one of those scenarios where it takes a little bit of deciphering, but then you start to see the rich interconnectedness of these systems and of these entities in order to solve these puzzles. And it only gets more and more complicated from here. It's cool.
Right, so the brine wisps refuse to go on land. We kind of need a brine wisp to come on land, and so we've got to solve that sort of mechanic. And I guess we're mooching around right in the place where we might just discover the answer.
Yeah, we're kind of just like looking around. I was looking for some brine wisps, also mucking about because I was like, yes, I remember that the kelpies can be, they react to your light. And it's like, that's interesting.
Right. The kelpies are those kind of like tendril things. They can kind of slow you down and get you kind of snarled
all
up.
Tangled up,
Yeah, so like looking at these brine wisps, scanned enough of them to get the Seek's brine lure information from them, and it's like, that's interesting. Where can I find one of those? Well, around here, there's a couple of strange epic bivalves, or do we still call them bivalves? Can't actually remember. Or no, the lure limpets is what we...
I think even I forgot where we landed with that one.
Yeah, lure limpet.
Good name.
We stunned them using the light tool. It's like, they have a brine wisp lure inside. It's like, that's fascinating. Let's grab that and see if this does anything.
Catnip them wisps.
Yep, they are hungry for it. Oh.
got eels.
Oh, swing and a miss.
The eel police, what are we calling them? Shock serpents?
Yeah.
Eel police is much better.
Eel police is a great internal name. So those are the kind of like snaky fellers that you've come across before, and they do not like the sound of scramjets. And so there's this issue where as soon as you engage scramjets, the like eel police is going to try to pull you down or pull you over. But you're going to need your scramjets on here because you've got brine wisps to lure.
Yeah, and it looks like this lure only lasts for so long.
Right? Yeah, you gonna make it?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, I got distracted by the cyclone.
They're still following.
Oh yeah, they were still.
All eel police are
Did we
bastards.
get them far enough over?
AEPAB.
Nope, does not look like it. So we'll go back and try again.
That is a good-sized tornado right there. That's a solid one.
Oh yeah.
That's not a little one.
We might even.
All right, timer's on.
You got this.
Tick,
Let's
tick, tick.
do it. I think some.
And you got your brine wisps following along.
Sounds like we've also got a couple of eels with us too. So we just gotta go.
See the crackles. See the flashing blue lights.
All right, brine wisps have been brought to the Throng Tempest, and I see, some dispersing is happening.
Yep. And we've
Brown wisp disperse.
Floor is opened.
Oh, and then we're got some Rocket Leaguing to do, some jet football.
Let's very carefully move this. These ones can't really be grappled effectively, but you can still grapple them to get them out of like tricky situations.
Right, so you can sort of, you can wangle them a little bit, but then you got to kick them with the concuss, the pop button.
A lot of interesting pronunciations in this stream. I think Craig just said wangle with the W.
Oh,
now, how do you pronounce wangle?
I've never pronounced that word before.
You've been
looks like I've accidentally triggered a swift hector as well. So that
happened.
Well, we'll deal with that later. Right now we're focused on this egg.
Yep. Pump that into the ocean.
That's
what I do.
Always satisfying.
Nice, satisfying one.
Quite a punt.
Wow, that's going out there.
Look at it go.
Hey, boof.
Craig, what was the internal nickname we had for that series of special effects there?
I don't know.
I can't remember. It was something equally obtuse and very insidery.
Is it food related?
It's possible.
I think that memory is lost. I think it's been a very busy last 14 months, and that one didn't come with me, so I don't know.
No, it wasn't important that remained.
So that was a post, like the posts that that some of the scouts put into the necrotic goat bloom in the Far Shore campaign, and in Given Time, there's sort of like a different thing has grown, I guess, around those scouts posts, but you can still interact with them by concussing. And one of the things that it does, and I should probably just be letting Zach explain this, but it sends out there was some other word that was fun. Some sort of reverberations.
Reverberance, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it kind of brings to light these things that glint pink and red, which it turns out are those things, those little kind of gems, shings. And you see the star, that kind of the UI icon on the right. If you get 5 shings, you get a star, and then you can use the star to repair your jet as you do. That's how science works.
Tale as old as time. Yep.
Nice.
So there's not a lot of gathering and survival stuff in Jet, but what there is going and mooching around looking for shings is something that you will have to do here and there in order to kind of keep your jet in reasonable shape. Only really becomes a problem when you notice that you're, down around 2 or 1 out of 5 health stars. And usually you can tell that's happening because your jet is spewing black smoke out the back. And that's your cue to just take a break, go look for some shings.
Hang out with the vibe and just, explore some of the coastal segments because they really like these kinds of spaces. So it's like,
Yeah, the whelks, which contain shings, are sort of coastal, and I think that you can find them other places too. Though. I'm trying to remember
They tend to like rocky environments in general, like cliff sides. There's like a central area of
valleys.
Yeah, I'm remembering some valleys on the west coast of Sosi Massive, like where the long valleys are.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a couple good spots there.
Oh, are you chasing the Swift Hector?
Yeah.
Here? No. Oh, you've already gotten this one.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, we accidentally triggered it again, so it's like, you know what? Let's go follow through.
Let's chase him down.
Yeah.
And here's Andy's Given Time song playing. Love it. We're coming up on 3 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
This race and this song might be
it's a good send off.
Might be what plays us out.
This could be it.
Yeah, these
It's looking good.
guys definitely like to give you a decent tour of the islands that they live on.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of provides sort of it definitely felt like sort of a victory lap, It's like, oh yeah, these are all the places you've kind of been.
Whoa. That's looking cool. Man. Nice.
Yeah. We're coming into the twilight area, so there might be a couple more dangers. It looks like we've got a whole cadre of Hectors dactyls chasing us.
A street gang of them after you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this stretch right here.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. So I'd say, I mentioned the streams, Craig, since we're confident we are streaming again.
Okay, so we're streaming again. Excellent.
Cool.
Smooth running. We're saying, so this has actually been really fun, this whole live stream, and it's been really nice to get to this section of Given Time where there's a lot of different options, and it's kind of free roaming and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot more Given Time from here. There are a ton of Brian Wisp Row to go after, and there's more chit chat that we can get to as well. We are wrapping up the launch day live stream, but we thought ahead and penciled in some subsequent live streams that we have in mind for Thursday evenings in February, starting on the 9th, so next Thursday, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern till 10:30 p.m. And and it'll be Richard Fossfiend in the co-pilot seat, and Zach Wheeler, Dev Powerhouse, at the helm of the Jet, and some other Jet Squad folks may stop in. But the theory is that Given Time is out there now. People can dive in and they can start kind of checking things out, and then they can play along a little bit with the rest of us and sort of check back in and see how Zach and Richard do. So that's the February the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, all Thursdays, all in February, from 8:30 p.m. And yeah, it should be good. Hopefully we won't have quite so many stream issues by then, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a tradition now, right? I think we just have to do this.
I mean, you can't stream without at least some technical difficulties, but
are we close to a cool moment to sort of sign off with, or
I was just heading to the shelter and gonna take a nap and then kind of sign off.
Yeah, maybe napping is the right way to sign off. Should we do any outros here I have been Craig at Super Brothers. Dan,
Dan has been Dan Barry.
you have been Dan. Thank you so much
day
for
long.
underpinning this whole adventure, all this streaming.
You're welcome.
Dustin?
Dustin, I've been Dustin Harbin this whole time. Probably will for the rest of the day at least, for sure. And
Richard?
you're welcome.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't say.
Yeah, so Richard signing off. So thank you guys for the stream, and thanks to the folks that have been watching. Is the stream still going?
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
killed it?
Apparently we got
we're
a
still
crowd
going.
on Jet, which, or on Steam, which is great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and just
yeah.
thanks for
Dive in.
checking in, and we're looking forward to streaming a bit more and digging in a bit deeper. Yeah, some folks are saying it's been fascinating reading all the Steam devs posts, so I think props
nice.
to Craig, Dustin, and everyone, Dan, who have been working hard on those posts, because I think it's really opened everyone's eyes as to the process involved. I mean, I've been on this project for a year, and still there were some awesome nuggets of information in those posts. So I think that was really cool, really elucidating.
That's a treat to hear. Yeah, no, it's been great to be able to air some of this material lately, and yeah, it's been awesome to work alongside all of y'all to make this stuff happen. So yeah. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoy Jet, and hope you get into Given Time and see what we've been up to in there. And yeah, it's a cool project. Hope you dig it.